Suppose I want to talk to you about how much I enjoy a particular musical album. For example, I personally am a big Taylor Swift fan, so these are my own personal rankings of the original Fearless album. However, suppose I want to describe to you how I feel about this particular album. What I could do is I could give you this list of songs and then my personal numerical score for all of them, and then you could get exactly how I feel about this album. But that would be very time consuming. It's very hard to read this data because, like, what the actual fuck is going on here? It's hard to see what I liked and what I didn't like. And well, there has to be a better way. Statistics offers us an ability to describe data. Just to note, for this video and any other videos, sources that I will be referencing will be the books Mathematical Statistics, which is an absolute insane book, and then Probability Statistics for Engineers and Scientists, as well as The Depths of My Own Depraved Mind and random internet resources. One way that I could present to you the data is I could tell you how often in this album did I think a song was a particular number. So what I could do is I could make a little graph like this for you in which I count up how often did I think a song was a 9, how often did I think a song was a 4, how often did I think a song was a 5, so on and so forth. Well, I could make a graph that looks something like this, in which I count how often does each song get each score. So I have 2 songs listed as a 2, 1 for a 3, 2 for a 4, 1 for a 5, 2 for a 7, 1 for an 8, 3 9s, and 1 10. And while this is also a lot of information, it's way easier to digest because you could see how frequently I am giving each song each score. And this type of graph is called a histogram. Also, instead of pure counts, we could have represented this as not just the counts, but the frequency of how often a particular bin occurs. So because we have 2 2s represented, that means 2 out of 13 songs have a score of 2. So what we could do is we could say that this height represents 2 out of 13. So if you wanted to know what percentage of the album we thought was a 2 out of 10, well, that would be 2 out of 13. But even still, this is still a lot for a person to take in. If they're just asking me, hey, Joe, what did you think of the Fearless album for Taylor Swift? I wouldn't want to give them this whole fucking histogram because, well, this is a lot. So we should distill it up even more. And there are 3 very common descriptive statistics that we often use. The first and most simple of them is something called the mode, where we will define the mode to be the most common value that we find inside of our set of data. So for this set of ratings that I came up for the album Fearless, I gave the score of 9 the most frequently out of everything. I didn't give it that much more frequently than 7, 4, or 2s, but the number 9 occurred more frequently than everything else. So what we would say is we would say that the mode of this data set is equal to 9. Next, we have what is called the median of a set of data. So the median of data is exactly what lies in the middle of your data set. We would say that the median of a data set is the value of which half of our data is bigger, or you could also say that half of our data is smaller. So if I was to actually sort out all of this data, I would get the following list of data. So if we want to find the median of our data set, well, we could just start removing numbers from each side until we find exactly what's in the middle. So let's just cross stuff off until we find that the value in the middle is 7. And I know that 7 is also equal to 7, so you could say that this is bigger than or equal to, but that's fine because we just want to find exactly what splits our data set in the middle. And if we order it out this way, well, we still split our data set exactly down the middle. So in this case, our median is 7. Now we got very, very lucky because there are 13 songs on this album, so we were able to split it up perfectly. There's 6 on this side, there's 6 on this side, and there's 1 right in the middle. If we had an even amount, so for example, say our data set only had 2 values. We had the value 1 and we had the value 2. What is the median? Because if we cross off 1 here and we cross off 2 here, well, then we have nothing left in the middle because there's an even number of item. Well, in this case, what we would do is we will take the average of these 2 numbers. But what is the average? Well, the average, or also known as the mean, is something we will define to be the sum of all data points divided by the number of data points. Now, exactly what this means isn't exactly clear right now, and we are going to describe this more in the future. But for now, just think of average as the same way you've always thought of average when you talk to people about the average thing. It's going to be the sum of all data. In this case, the average is going to be 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5. All of this sum of the scores we gave these songs divided by 13. Plugging this all into a calculator, we get that the average is 79 over 13, which is approximately 6.0769 ... Nice. Now in this case, we will give the average, since it will come up so frequently in statistics, we give it a special symbol. In this case, we say that the mean is this letter mu. It's a Greek symbol. Get used to Greek symbols. They appear all the fucking time. You will often see that the average will sometimes be listed as X bar. So you'll see the letter X with some line over the top of it, which represents the sample average. I'll get to explaining that all in the future. But for now, we'll just represent it as this symbol mu. So now if somebody asks me, what did you think of the album Fearless? Well, I could give them the full list if I wanted to, but that's too much. I could give them the histogram either in terms of counts or proportions if they wanted to see a graph version. If that's still too much work, I could say the most common score that I gave was a 9 out of 10. I could also say that my median of my data set, or about half of the songs, I thought were a 7 or better, and about half of the songs were a 5 or worse. Or I could say that on average, I thought that the album was about a 6 out of 10. All of these would be very fine ways to describe your data set.